Hello my friends. Alright, in this video I am going to give you a feast of ideas as far as what to be growing this year in your garden. Okay? Because it's the last week of February, almost March, and now is the time to plan this stuff out so that you'll know what you got to start up early, and you'll just know you got to plan it now for a successful period. Okay? So, the philosophy of Garden Like a Viking is very simple. It's all about sustenance and storage capability. And with that comes life force, growing nutrient-dense food that is full of vitality and vitamins and minerals and all the good stuff, so that we have abounding health and vibrance and vitality. Yes, all of it depends upon what we eat. And so there's no better way to ensure vital health than to be growing your own nutrient-dense food. And this is what we're going to plan. All right? So first things first. Is there anything that you absolutely cannot eat? All right? If you know for a fact you're never going to eat onions or anything with onions, then don't grow onions. If you know for a fact you're not going to touch tomatoes, then don't grow tomatoes. Okay? But if you're even open to the idea of all that stuff, I suggest doing it. All right? Really try to stretch your culinary horizons with the garden, because homegrown stuff is light years beyond anything you can purchase in a store. It's better even than most farmers markets, because they're doing it for a profit, whereas you're doing it for the love, for the life, for the nourishment, all right? For yourself, for your family. And that kind of energy goes into the stuff, to the soil, to the surrounding. It's just the good stuff, my friends, okay? So be growing your own stuff. And pickiness, you know, that's a modern phenomenon. Okay, the Vikings knew nothing of, oh no, I don't like kippered herring, or oh no, I don't like the sauerkraut. They don't know nothing about that. It's fresh food in its natural state. So let's get into it. So if there's anything you're not going to eat, then okay, check that off the list. But otherwise, now we have to plan what are the storage crops and the nutrient-dense crops, and then combine the two. All right, so things that are really nutrient dense, meaning calories, is going to be things like potatoes, winter squash, sweet potatoes, peas, carrots, stuff of that nature, okay? As opposed to the leafy greens, which are still very vital, of course, you must be growing those as well, but those are more for phytochemicals, or phytonutrients, they're called. Those are not your calorie crops. So most people, when they start growing their own food, they're growing rabbit food. They grow 12 different kinds of lettuce, you know, and so it's like, okay, well, that's great, that's cool. I'm glad that you like big salads and stuff, but that's not like survival food. That's not sustenance, really. All right, you can't survive on lettuce, although you definitely have to have it to thrive. So I'm not saying in any way don't be growing plenty of leafy greens, but the focus, the foundation has to be the calories, all right? And it just so happens that things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, and winter squash store incredibly well, all right? So look, we're just gonna get right into it. Just feast your eyes with all this this goodness and these ideas, and write down what you think, something you wanna do, and put it in the comments if you have any questions or need further clarification, okay? So this has been, like I said, it's the first week of March almost, and this is still rock hard in perfectly good condition, just like the day I harvested it like 6 months ago, or it was harvested in September. This is a type of butternut squash. It's a Tahitian melon squash, and you just cut the portion that you need, and the rest of it forms like a skin over where you cut it, and it just stores, and you cut it again a few days later when you want more for another dish, and it just stores, and it's filled with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, calories, fiber, carbohydrates, beta carotene, okay? And the seeds are here for next year. So it's a magnificent miracle of nature. It just sits in the basement. I got like a dozen of them. Well, and I had like 20 of them, but of course I eat them. So as well, sweet potatoes, okay? Look at this big thing. And this has been down in the basement since I harvested it in September, and it's still rock hard, and it's still delicious and super sweet. So they just store, and see, you don't clean them, so it's real dirty. You don't wash the soil off because it's got microbiotics in it on the surface. So these are nice and sweet and delicious, and they last all winter long in the basement. So you want to be growing this filled with fiber, protein, fats, carbs, all the good stuff, tons of vitamins. Now, also regular potatoes. Although my regular potatoes Irish potatoes have just started going to sprout, which is fine because it won't be but another month or two and we'll be planting them. So, but up until now, I've been eating loads of potatoes, all right, Irish potatoes. So if any of that appeals to you, you want to be growing potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, all right? I suggest the Tahitian melon squash. It's vigorous and a massive producer. One vine will produce like 8 of these, okay? Now, more sustenance crops, okay? These are peas. I just put them in this, I use these because my friend gives me these containers, but what's actually in them is I dry peas. So I grow peas outside in the garden. I shell them open and let them dry. And then I sprout them over the winter. And I'll sprout these and harvest the pea shoots, or sometimes I'll just sprout them for a couple of days and put them into something. These are full of protein and lots of fiber. Okay, these are actually a legume or whatever. So these are very nourishing. These have got to be in your arsenal. And look, they're shelf stable. They just sit on the shelf. Again, this is just a container that I'm using. I do the same thing with beans, okay? These are a certain type of bean that I grew. I forget exactly what kind, but they sit on the shelf like that. See, here's some more. I harvest them. Look, I let them grow in the back, and then I harvest them and keep them in these bags because there's so many of them, until I need them. And then I crunch on the bag, and see, the beans come out. These are really beautiful, called Mother Stallard beans. And they're really delicious. And there's loads and loads of them. I got all kinds of beans. I eat beans like 3 times a week. You see, those are full of proteins, fibers, nutrients of all kinds. So you'd be growing beans, okay? That's another sustenance crop. Now, as well, I have cornmeal that I grew. So I grow like what they call Indian corn, and then dry it out, and you grind it up. It's a process, but you grind it up, and I have cornmeal, which I make like Johnny cakes out of all winter long. So those are your sustenance things, all right? There's more, but you're just getting a good idea, all right? Now comes things like, now comes things that are going to flavor and add phytochemicals, phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, and all of that. So this is, I can my own tomato sauce, or pasta sauce really. And in this is tomatoes I grew out there, garlic I grew, onions, green onions, basil, and some thyme and oregano, all of which I grew here on the property. And I made like 40 quarts of this last year and the year before. And so all winter long, I just once a week, I'll have pasta or I'll make some kind of dish with it. Boom, all kinds of goodness in here. Now, of course, these green beans, I can these as well. I grow a couple of things of bush beans, and here, savory, summer savory. I also grow that in the front. So I'll pick some summer savory, put it in there, and do the canning process. A little bit of garlic is in the bottom. These are delicious. Put them in stews or eat them as is over the winter. Now, this garlic pickles, but they're fermented, and this is the thing. This is different. These are not like the pickles you get from the store where they just pour vinegar over them. These are actually alive. These are fermented in the way you ferment sauerkraut. So they're filled with microbiotics, probiotics for the gut, which we have 100 trillion microorganisms in our gut tract, okay? More microorganism cells than human cells. Look it up. And so it's very important to feed them. And this kind of food is nourishing for the microorganisms in the gut. Now, which the microorganisms, look into this, and we'll talk more about this in the future, but this is what regulates your mood, your ability to digest things. Your serotonin is regulated by the microorganisms in the gut. So you have to focus on these things. And they eat primarily fiber, but also micronutrients like would be found in this. Now, I grew these. These are Chicago pickling cucumbers. I grew them out back. I grew all of it. These are mustard seeds I grew, garlic, and dill, all of which came from the back, okay? Of course, sauerkraut, which is one of my favorite things, filled with probiotics again. And this is just cabbage. I grew some big winter cabbages out back, caraway seed, juniper berries, and sea salt. That's it, all right? And it keeps all winter long. It keeps for a long time, multiple years actually. This is the very last bit of kimchi that I have, okay? This I love. It's nice and spicy, and I add it to all different kinds of things. This is actually a year old. Or no, over that, a year and a half old, this one. And it stayed in the fridge. And it just gets better with time, actually. The flavor, it's almost like a wine in a way. Because I wasn't able to make any last year. But this has got daikon radish, carrot, Chinese cabbage, green onion, and some other things, all of which I grew here in the back. So this is great to be making. Now, I grew kale, bunch of kale, and I can't really stomach kale. I mean, I can, but it's like I love collard greens instead. Those are my favorite greens. I grew a bunch of those. And so what I do with the kale is I dehydrate it and grind it into a powder. This is like a huge amount of kale in here actually. And so to smoothies or whatever, I just add a spoonful of the kale powder, and I can feel, I mean, you can feel how much energy I have, right? I'm sure you can. Part of it though comes from the yerba mate with a tablespoon of raw honey and a squeeze of lemon juice. I drink this every day. All right, and I did the same with celery. Okay, I dehydrated celery. This is actually a boatload of celery, believe it or not. Not quite that much, but it adds a very strong celery flavor. You only need like a quarter of a teaspoon, and you can taste the celery in like a stew or a dish or something like this. And again, dehydrating it and putting it in these airtight containers, sits on the shelf. It's good for a long time because it's all about preserving the harvest. And I dehydrate it 2/3 in the sun, actually outside, and I just finish it with a dehydrator. Same with chives, see? Chives, which you have to kind of rehydrate the chives, but they stay like this. I have them with eggs and stuff. So I do the same with thyme, okay? I grew the thyme here. I grew the chamomile here, which is such a delicious, beautiful smell. I had COVID or whatever a couple of months ago, and it was really intense for like 3 days, but I had it, but then it just kind of went away. It was like 5 days in total, but I drank this stuff and it was no big deal. It was very mild actually. So yeah, dill that I use for all kinds of stuff. I grew this. This is mint. Now I took the mint from outside, which grows everywhere, ground it up, or dehydrated it, then ground it up. See, and I add it to my tea all the time. That yerba mate tea, often, yes. Now this, okay, Anaheim chili peppers. Now they're not like cayenne, but they're just a little bit spicy. They're delicious though, man. So I dehydrated them mostly in the sun and then finished them in the dehydrator and then ground them in the Vitamixer. Seeds and everything. Delicious to add to, well, all kinds of stuff, dishes. But then I also took some of those Anaheim chilies and smoked them on my brother's smoker. So I smoked them till they were nice and crispy, yeah, and then ground them up and put a little bit of, I put 2 or 3 cayenne peppers in this one. So this has got like a nice smoky taste and flavor with some spice. It's just awesome. You can add this to all kinds of stuff, all right? So you're getting the idea, right? You're getting the idea of what it means to garden like a Viking. Now, I'll show you one more thing. I grow a cover crop of rye grass. And so when I let that go, I'll let some of it go to seed, and then I'll take it and thresh it over in the late summer. And you see, this is rye grass, sprouted rye grass. So when this gets like this tall, I juice it. So I grow my own rye for that purpose. Now, there you go. The video is a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but this gives you the idea, Okay, so you see all of the storage capabilities. None of this stuff needs the refrigerator. I mean, the just like some of this stuff I put in the fridge, but some of the stuff I don't put, some of them I put downstairs, and there's no difference. All right, so, and then things like this, of course, require no special refrigeration or electricity. So you see in here, we have nutrient-dense food, whole foods in their natural state, or as close to their natural state as possible. And we have fresh, living foods. We don't have dead food that's been irradiated and added chemicals and all kinds of preservatives. We have fresh, living food. And when we ingest this fresh, living organisms, they work in harmony with our organism, and we just feel harmonious. It's so important, my friends. It's so important. So I hope this gives you an idea of what you want to be growing this year, okay? Things like squash take up a lot of space, so you got to have a lot of space for them to sprawl out, okay? The corn that I grow doesn't take up a lot of space, actually, just a lot of time for the dry corn. Potatoes, I'll show you a method to grow potatoes in a trash bag. All right, that's a really good way. I mean, to grow with as simple as possible, all right? They're very easy to grow, so you can grow potatoes in a very small spot and still get a lot. Sweet potatoes require a little bit more room, but you can still do it, and I'll be showing you how to do all that stuff on the channel. Garlic, onions, all that kind of stuff you can do in small areas. So if you have any questions, let me know. I want to try and keep it to the point. Yeah, get excited, my friends, because this is the time to be growing our sustenance, especially given everything that's happening in the world. This is the #1 hedge against uncertainty. We have to do what humans have done for thousands of years, and that is sustain ourselves and our families in a way that regenerates and nourishes the land instead of depletes it, okay? So I'm gonna be showing you all different kinds of fertilization techniques and things to make yourself for free, of course. And I mean, the supplies are free. So yeah, all right guys, I'll leave it there.